Network Africa. Africa's CDC seeking to import Pfizer's COVID treatment pill. Suspected separatist gunfire kills one in Cameroon. Plus, panel that awards the Nobel Peace Prize says Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has special responsibility to end Tigray War. Hello everyone and welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shoboale. The Africa Centers for Disease Control says it's seeking to work with Pfizer to bring its treatment pill for COVID-19 to the continent. It comes as the African CDC Director, John Nkengasong, says just over 10% of the African population are now fully vaccinated. The continent has also reported over 10 million COVID cases, about 223,000 deaths, with the majority reported in South Africa.
If we have another variant that emerged, like the Omicron, and just imagine if Omicron was that transmissible and also very severe and was overwhelming our hospital system, the only way to relieve that would be if we have the drugs, like the Paxlovid, where people can take that drug and stay home and get relief. And that way the burden and all the constraints on the health system will be limited. So today, January the 13th, a total of 10.1 million cases of COVID-19 have been reported on the continent. So we've hit an important milestone of 10 million cases. Of that number, 223,000 individuals have unfortunately died. A total of 46 countries are now experiencing a fourth wave. And of that number, 28 of them, that is 61%, are experiencing a very severe fourth wave. A total of 39 countries in Africa are now reporting the Omicron variant. The continent also recorded a total of 2,680 new deaths, and that represents an 85% increase in number of new deaths if you compare that to last week. The total coverage, which is defined as the number of people that have received their full immunization, 2 doses of other vaccines or the 1 dose of Johnson & Johnson, is 10.1%.
Meanwhile, a South African health official says she's still seeing serious COVID-19 disease in people who are unvaccinated or have other illnesses during an infection wave driven by the Omicron variant. She made the comments during the WHO's weekly briefing.
To describe our current experience with this fourth wave, we are definitely experiencing a very large fourth wave of COVID, and 95% of all of these infections are of the Omicron variant, which is different to what we're seeing in North America. It's definitely the most contagious variant with a massive upsurge, rapid upsurge in cases. However, despite this massive upsurge in cases and infections, we're definitely also seeing the least of all severe COVID waves, with much less hospitalizations and much less ICU requirements. However, we are still seeing very serious infections and admissions in patients who are unvaccinated, and also in patients who have comorbidity, and this includes the elderly population. Our vaccination remains the best, most effective way of protecting ourselves and our patients from severe disease, hospitalization, and death.
Côte d'Ivoire soccer fans watching the African Cup of Nations are being greeted with rapid tests, masks and COVID-19 vaccines at dedicated fan zones, an initiative of the Health Ministry to spur vaccination. Officials say already dozens of young people have been vaccinated at the Cup of Nations villages. Soccer is the West African country's favorite sport, and thousands of fans have stormed the Cup of Nations villages in Abidjan, where the matches are projected on giant screens. One of the tournament favorites, Côte d'Ivoire, is in the same group as defending champions Algeria and Sierra Leone. It defeated Equatorial Guinea 1-0 in their first game on Wednesday evening to top the group. Masks are required within the fan zones, and stands have been set up for awareness raising about COVID-19. Rapid tests and vaccines are also being offered at mobile clinics.
It's really good. If it was up to me alone, everyone would get vaccinated. Because there are a lot of people here. So, if you don't get vaccinated, you can contract the virus from someone else who is sick. Whereas, if you are already vaccinated, it becomes a shield. So, in my opinion, it's a good deed. And I invite everyone to come and get vaccinated here.
The city of Abidjan is the center of the COVID-19 outbreak in Côte d'Ivoire, where cases have surged in recent weeks due to the Omicron variant. The country has administered enough doses to vaccinate about 14% of its 26 million population so far. The health ministry aims to double that figure by the end of June.
We are in a time of COVID, and you know that the Omicron variant is in full bloom. So we came with vaccines and masks. You see here at the entrance, several devices have been put in place. Masks, hand gel, everything that can try to keep the virus away from the people.
Côte d'Ivoire has reported at least 77,857 infections and 742 coronavirus-related deaths since the pandemic began. To security matters now, residents of Buea in southwest Cameroon say one man has been shot dead and another is in hospital with bullet wounds after suspected separatist rebels opened fire near the town's central market. Several football teams taking part in the Africa Cup of Nations are based in the area and trained there. The separatists who started fighting the government almost 5 years ago have threatened to disrupt the tournament. Late on Tuesday, an opposition senator was shot dead in the city of Bamenda in northwest Cameroon, another English-speaking region which is badly affected by the separatist rebellion. We'll have more on the situation in Cameroon, but in the meantime, over in North Africa, Sudanese activists have called for demonstrations to continue to demand the end of military rule. Protest organizers had planned action for Wednesday, but decided to delay it by a day at the last minute. A poster shared on social media by the Sudanese Professionals Association, the group that mobilized protests against the former president, Omar al-Bashir, urged Sudanese to take part in the Loyan March demonstrations. A doctors' union says more than 60 people have been killed in weeks of demonstrations demanding for civilian rule. Abdullah Hamdok, who had served as prime minister before he was arrested by the military in October and later reinstated as premier a month later, resigned at the end of January, throwing the country into a major crisis. The army now remains fully in charge as talks continue on the appointment of civilian leaders. Meanwhile, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has broken his silence over the military coup in neighboring Sudan and the ongoing protests calling for civilian rule. Egypt has faced accusations of siding with Sudan's head of military, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, but President Sisi dismisses the claims. He called on both the military rulers and the protesters to embrace dialogue to end the political crisis. Separately, he said he was disappointed by the breakdown of talks between Egypt, Ethiopia and Sudan over the construction of a dam on the River Nile, which has been a source of a decade-long dispute between the countries. Well, let's head over to the situation in Cameroon now. Cameroonian journalist Peter Coombe joins us for more on the situation there. Thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa.
You're welcome.
This report is really worrying considering the Africa Cup of Nations taking place in the country and football teams around the area where the shooting took place. What more can you tell us about this at this time?
It all happened on Wednesday when the two teams, that is Tunisia and Gambia, were preparing to go out for the training session. And the market was being attacked. That is the Buea Central Market was attacked by separatists who wanted the population, especially the traders, to go back home and respect the ghost town that they are installed in the Buea Central Market. They did not want anybody to go out so that the AFCON will not take place yesterday, since yesterday was going to be the first match in the Buea city. When the military came to send away the separatist fighters, there was a fight between the two groups, and one civilian, that's a taxi driver, and a trader were killed, and even a soldier also were killed. So we have 3 people who died yesterday before the match started in the evening.
Well, what's the situation like in terms of security? Are security officials well equipped and on ground to counter any potential security threat?
Yes, security officials have been well equipped and they have been reinforced. Many officers were sent from Douala and Yaoundé to reinforce those who are already in the southwest regions where the Group F matches are being played. But you can bear with me that the separatist fighters are found among the population, and so they can come out at any time and attack and at any place. But what the separatist fighters make people to understand is that they have nothing to do with those strangers who have come to attend the AFCON games in the southwest regions. They said they just want the international community to hear what they have been suffering through, and this is the right time because they know the international media is around them and they are able to be heard during this time that everybody is concentrated on what is going on in Cameroon.
And speaking of the root cause of this issue, the country has been torn by violence since October 2017, when militants declared an independent state in the northwest and southwest region. Thousands of people have been killed and many more have fled their homes. What are authorities actually doing to restore peace to the region?
In 2019, that is 2 years after the war started in the two Anglophone regions, that is the northwest and southwest regions, the government organized in a national dialogue in Yaoundé, which was a failure because the separatist leaders and even separatists never attended this national dialogue because they were not invited by the government. Instead, we found the government ministers and other politicians who took place in the national dialogue. And up to today, the fighting has been going on. This means that the national dialogue has not been a successful event concerning the war, concerning the way that this war has to be resolved. And later, we found that the government, instead of trying to talk to people, to the separatists, to listen to them on what they really want, the government has been sending the military to fight against them. So we can see that the government has no real ability to solve this problem for the moment.
All right, then we do hope for a speedy solution. Cameroonian journalist Peter Coombe, thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa.
And thank you also.
Still to come on the program. Morocco lecturer jailed for 2 years over sex for grades scandal. More details in a moment. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. The panel that awards the Nobel Peace Prize says the Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, who won the award in 2019, bears a special responsibility to end the ongoing bloodshed in the Tigray region. Northern Ethiopia has been beset by conflict since November 2020, when Prime Minister Abiy sent troops into Tigray after accusing the region's ruling party, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, of attacks on federal army camps. Earlier, the World Health Organization said a blockade preventing medicines and other life-saving supplies reaching the region has created hell.
WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, who himself is from Tigray, says the region's population of 7 million has been under siege for more than a year.
Imagine a complete blockade of 7 million people for more than a year, and there is no food, there is no medication, no medicine, no electricity, no telecom, no media. Nobody can report. And when there is no telephone, I think accessing families is difficult. No cash, no bank service. And imagine the impact of all this on health. Lack of medicine has direct impact and people are dying. But lack of food also kills. And on top of that, daily drone attacks is killing people.
He claims that despite its best efforts, the WHO has been blocked from sending medicine into the region, creating what he describes a hellish situation.
From our side, we have been trying, from WHO side, trying to have access to send drugs to Tigray and the other affected areas by the conflict, Afar and Amhara regions. We were permitted to send medicines to Afar region and Amhara region, while we were not allowed to send to Tigray region. We have approached the Prime Minister's office, we have approached the Foreign Ministry, we have approached all relevant sectors, but no permission. So there is a blatant measure which has been taken, that's blockade and siege, for more than a year, 7 million people, and since especially July, no medication was allowed from WHO, none whatsoever. We have tried all our best, but we're blocked from sending medicines to Tigray, Ethiopia. And that's so dreadful and unimaginable during this time, 21st century, when a government is denying its own people for more than a year food and medicine and the rest to survive.
The World Health Organization also says officials have received letters from doctors in the northern region who have run out of basic treatments for illnesses such as diabetes.
The issue is that there are people, real, people living in a situation, whatever the cause of that situation, who have no access to the very basic life-saving interventions that we in the West, that we sitting here in Geneva would expect immediately, instantly, if we were to fall ill or sick. And from my perspective, this is an insult to our humanity to allow a situation like this to continue, to allow no access, zero access. Dr. Tedros said in his speech at the last press conference that access is the lifeblood, the starting point for humanitarian intervention. And we simply do not have that access. Access for our staff, access to the field, getting basic medical supplies in there. So it's truly important that all parties involved in this find a solution to allow humanitarian workers, doctors and nurses to do their job.
The fighting between forces loyal to Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and the Tigray People's Liberation Front and their allies has killed thousands of people and forced several millions from their homes since it erupted in November 2020. Tigray is under what the United Nations calls a de facto blockade that is preventing life-saving medicine and food from reaching millions, including hundreds of thousands in famine-like conditions.
Southern African countries have agreed to extend their troop deployment in Mozambique, where the government has been fighting militants linked to Islamic State. The insurgency, centered on the northern Cabo Delgado province, has claimed thousands of lives since it broke out in 2017. Last year, a multi-billion-dollar liquefied natural gas project was brought to a halt when fighters attacked the town of Palma. Member countries of the South African Development Community agreed a 3-month deployment to Mozambique in June last year, which was extended in October. Rwanda, which is not an SADC member, has also sent troops. Security analyst Chidi Nwanu joins us now for more on the situation. Chidi, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Mozambique's military had been losing ground against the insurgency until it accepted the help. So this extension is a good sign, isn't it? As SADC leaders say, good progress has been made. What's your assessment?
Well, there has been positive progress made by the SADC forces. The South Africans and the Rwandans have operated quite successfully against the rebels. But the problem being that this is an insurgency, the rebels will just adapt and, improvise and then come back with a new form of operations. As you can see, the South Africans have taken not significant casualties, but they've taken casualties, particularly amongst their special forces. The Rwandans as well have, suffered some setbacks. So the extension is to be expected because this will not be a short-term operation. The problem is that there is no real exit strategy. I mean, it hasn't been specified what the SADC considers victory. Will it be when the rebels are defeated, or will it be when the Mozambican forces are able to continue operations by themselves? So I think that's the key element that's missing.
Yeah, there is still a lot in the air. They also didn't mention how long this extension is for. How long do you think troops need to stay to ensure that the gains that they've said they've made aren't lost?
So that's the big problem. As I said, the key exit strategy for them will be to get the Mozambican forces to be able to prosecute the operation by themselves. And that's not going to be possible until the Mozambicans conduct serious political and military reforms. So there's no way you could put a time frame, but it's not something that's going to end in the next 2 years or 3 or 4 years. But obviously, the SADC forces cannot remain committed indefinitely. However, if you look at Mozambican history, you will see that the Zimbabweans, when the fight against Renamo was taking place, committed initially for a few months to protect, the Beira Railway, and it ended up spending, almost 10, 12 years. So, just from history, one could say this will take a long time.
But do you think that will be all it needs to resolve this, the root cause of the conflict? The president had said in the past that there is no room for negotiations as the insurgents don't appear to have a leadership to talk to.
Yes, that is a bit of an issue. So there is no way to say exactly what's the objective or even the outcomes will be. There has to be some sort of a negotiated settlement, but without identifying, what it is that they want that's, feasible, that's not going to be possible. So the military option will continue. But the military option, the insurgency only came about because of the failings of the Mozambican state. So one of the key ways the Mozambican state can rectify this problem is by bringing development and providing representation to the people of Cabo Delgado.
All right, then, security analyst Chidi Nwanu, thank you so much for your thoughts on the program.
Thank you.
And over in the Democratic Republic of Congo, armed forces have launched a series of attacks against the positions held by allied democratic forces in Virunga National Park in the east of the country. The air offensive follows a joint operation at the end of November with Ugandan forces who are also fighting the group. On Tuesday, Congolese military sources announced the arrest of one of the founders of the Allied Democratic Forces. The ADF are responsible for thousands of killings in the North Kivu province, as well as recent bomb attacks in Uganda. The Islamic State group presents the ADF as its regional branch. A Moroccan university professor accused of giving students good grades in return for sexual favors has been sentenced to 2 years in prison. This is the first verdict in a string of high-profile sexual harassment cases at universities in Morocco. The economics lecturer at Hassan I University in Settat City was convicted of indecent behavior, sexual harassment and violence. 4 more academics are due to appear in court later as part of the scandal. The story came to light in September through the leaking on social media of messages that are said to have been between the lecturers and students. And finally on the program, in a first for South Africa's space industry, 3 locally produced nanosatellites will be launched into space today. The first maritime domain awareness satellite constellation will be launched as part of U.S. aerospace company SpaceX's Transporter 3 mission. The South African satellites will be launched aboard U.S. aerospace company SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket as a rideshare payload of the company's Transporter 3 mission and will be deployed in low Earth orbit of an altitude of 525 kilometers. The MDA Sat-1 launch is a significant milestone for South Africa, marking the first launch of a satellite developed entirely on the African continent. And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shuboale. Bye for now.